For the last 80 years, almost every single World War II movie you have ever seen has been lying to you. Lying about one of the most iconic, most important weapons of the entire war, the tank.
And look, we're not talking about small historical oopsies here. We're talking about massive, physics-defying falsehoods that would have gotten real tank crews killed in a matter of seconds. Hollywood has just been recycling the same tired, dramatic myths for decades, and today we're going to tear them apart, one by one.
So first up, let's tackle the myth of speed. Movies like Fury show us these epic scenes of tanks racing across fields, guns blazing, engaging in these high-speed mobile duels. I mean, it looks absolutely incredible on screen, but was it real?
Let's just try to put this into perspective for a second. You're in a 30-ton steel box, and it's bouncing and lurching across uneven ground. Now you're the gunner, and you're trying to aim this huge cannon at a tiny target hundreds of meters away, a target that might also be moving. So what do you think? What were the odds of actually hitting anything?
Less than 1%. Just let that sink in. Firing on the move was such a colossal waste of ammunition that the Germans actually officially banned it, except in the most dire emergencies. And what about that famous American gyro stabilizer we hear about? Well, it only helped keep the gun roughly pointed forward. It definitely didn't turn the tank into some kind of mobile sniper platform.
This quote from a veteran says it all, doesn't it? Real tank combat wasn't some high-speed race. It was a slow, methodical, and absolutely terrifying game of chess. You find a good position, you stop, you aim, you take your shot, and you pray to God you hit them before they hit you.
All right, let's move on to myth number 2, and oh boy, this is a big one, the myth of fire. You know the scene, a tank gets hit and instantly, boom, it erupts in a massive Hollywood fireball, the turret flies 100 feet into the air. Super dramatic, right? Yeah, but it's not even close to being accurate.
The US Army actually studied their own knocked-out Sherman tanks, and what they found was a pretty startling truth. Only about 15% of them ever burned. The overwhelming majority, 85%, did not. So where in the world did this Hollywood trope of the instant inferno even come from?
The reality was actually much grimmer and a lot quieter. When a shell punched through the armor, it didn't ignite the fuel. What it did was send a storm of red-hot metal fragments, we call it spall or shrapnel, ricocheting around the inside of that tiny crew compartment. The tank would just stop, a neat little hole in its armor, its crew killed or wounded inside.
Now to be fair, the Sherman did have a reputation for burning. The Germans gave it the grim nickname Ronson, because it lights up the first time. But this wasn't about its fuel. The real danger was its own ammunition cooking off, exploding from the intense heat of an enemy hit. But here's the crucial part. The Allies figured this out, and they solved it. By 1944, they introduced wet ammo storage, which surrounded the shells with a water glycol mixture. And this one simple change cut those fires down to under 10%. Hollywood just kind of ignores that little detail because, a quiet, disabled tank doesn't sell as many tickets.
Okay, next, let's talk about myth number 3, the unbelievable penetrating power of tank shells. We have all seen this scene. A tank fires its gun, and the shell just punches cleanly through one building, then a second, then a third, to obliterate an enemy hiding on the other side of the block.
But here's the thing. Tank guns don't work like giant rifles. The shells, especially the high explosive rounds, were designed with really sensitive fuses. The moment they hit a hard surface, like a brick wall, they detonated. They'd blow a hole in the wall, sure, but the shell itself wasn't going anywhere else. A single wall could stop pretty much any tank round dead in its tracks.
And what's really incredible is that this very misconception became a tool for psychological warfare. This German panzer commander notes that they just let the Allies believe their shells could penetrate cover. It kept enemy soldiers hiding and pinned down, while the Germans were simply driving around to get a clean shot. Genius.
This brings us right to myth number 4, the commander's heroic view. In the movies, he's always standing tall in that open hatch, binoculars glued to his eyes, with this perfect panoramic view of the entire battlefield, the ultimate command post.
The reality for a crew that was sealed inside or buttoned up was pure, unadulterated claustrophobia. The driver had a vision slit just a few inches wide. The gunner's periscope gave him a view about the size of a dinner plate. For all intents and purposes, the crew was fighting almost completely blind. And the data on this is just staggering. German tests revealed that fully buttoned-up tank crews missed spotting 60% of the visible targets right in front of them. Think about that. More than half the enemy threats were basically invisible to a sealed-up crew.
And this quote from an American commander, it just sums up the terrifying choice they faced. Stay inside and you're blind. Open the hatch so you can see and you expose yourself to sniper fire. They chose snipers. That is how critical vision was. It was worth risking almost certain death just to be able to see the battlefield.
So, we've pretty much established that real tank combat was slow, methodical, and basically blind. Nothing like the high-speed action movies try to sell us. This leads us to our fifth and final section, the steel coffin's truth, and why these Hollywood lies just refuse to die. What about the ramming attack? You know, the ultimate act of desperation and heroism, where one tank just smashes into another in a shower of sparks and twisted steel. Surely that happened, right?
No, not really. It was a suicidal act that was explicitly forbidden by military doctrine. The physics are pretty simple. A 30-ton tank hitting a 45-ton tank at speed would shatter the transmissions and tracks of both vehicles, leaving them both dead in the water. You'd essentially be committing suicide right in front of an enemy gun.
So, the truth of tank warfare is a world away from what we see in the movies. It was a slow, terrifying business, fought by crews who were half blind, who had to stop to have any chance of hitting their target, and where victory often just came down to who saw who first. Death wasn't a giant fireball. It was a quiet, sudden event inside a cramped steel box.